Hi, my name is Emily Kosman. I am a firefighter here with the City of Columbia Heights, and today I have our wonderful guest, Denise DeMars. She was a firefighter with the City of Columbia Heights, and she has a wonderful little nugget to tell you about her being a firefighter here with Columbia Heights, and a little bit about her history. So, welcome, Denise.
Well, thank you very much. It's kind of fun to be back, and amongst all the trucks, they still smell the same.
They're still red? Well, were they red when you started?
They were white and yellow when I started.
Yellow. So do you approve of the red now, or do you still miss the white?
Okay, there's two things. When you get red, actually, you know, when you get like a red car, red turns black in the dark, which, I mean, if you keep the truck shiny, fine, all the lights are going to shine off of it, but when the trucks were white, and I asked the captain when I first got on, I says, how come we all got white trucks? And he said, because in the winter you can sneak up on the fires. And that was the only answer he gave me, but I think it had something to do with white horses pulling the rigs, years ago.
Pulling the carts, yeah.
They had white horses, but nah, I just missed the whole thing. Red, white, blue, I don't
You
care.
just miss the big loud trucks.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. They're fun to drive.
We can give you an application if you want to come back.
I mean,
We might cause some ruckus here with the guys.
No,
No?
not anymore.
Okay. Well, tell us about that.
Well, when let's see, I hate to even say how far back this was because you'll go, oh, I wasn't even born yet.
Oh, I promise I won't say that.
It was 1978, and the Columbia Heights, now I'll back up. My dad, and before him, I think I'm the fifth generation of DeMarses to do this. The oldest one we're just not sure about. It's all anecdotal. But me, Dad, Grandpa, great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa, we think great-great-grandpa was in there, but that was way back in the the early days of Heights.
The founding years.
The founding fathers. But anyway, Dad was a firefighter, and I can remember at that time, the siren would go off when you guys had a call, or when we had a call. And you could hear this boo, and the siren would go off, and we only lived like a block from the fire department. So my dad would, quick get his shoes on, and and he'd run out the door, and he'd run to the fire department. That's kind of what I grew up with, but never gave a thought of doing it. It wasn't done. It just wasn't done. Girls didn't become firefighters, period. So it was like 1978. I was, in my early 20s, and the Heights Fire Department put an ad in the local paper, whatever it was called at that time, for volunteer firefighters to come in and test. And so I was married, and I took that paper and I ran it over to my husband at the time, and he was a great big guy. He was 6'5", 285 pounds, and he was like, wow. I said, Jeff, you can do this. And he looked at it and he read it, and then he handed it right back, and he said, nope, you can do this. And that's the very first time I ever thought, yeah, I bet I could. I bet I could. I was probably too stupid to know that I couldn't. So I went in and I did the testing and the interview process and was brought on as a volunteer firefighter. And there was really not much of a ruckus at the time because I was just a volunteer, and it was not a big deal, and people were just kind of keeping their eyes on me to see, can she or can't she? And it was okay. It was pretty good. And something I don't think I've ever told this out in public before is that when you get on the volunteer, you get in-house training. But then the tech colleges were starting to have the firefighter training where everybody from all different departments could go to the tech college and get trained, once a week or whatever it was. And they said, well, we're going to send you to the tech college, to the school. And I said, okay. Well, there was no girls there other than me. And so I went in, and here's what's funny is I didn't know that there were no other female firefighters around there. And so I come into this class, and the instructor was so nice. He was a guy, he was in his mid-50s, and he had been a firefighter, and he was like super cool. Treated me like everybody else. Didn't blink an eye. It was like he couldn't even see gender. And everything was just perfect. And I felt like really welcomed and I wasn't scared, and I got no crap from anybody. And I thought, this is so cool. And they brought in guest instructors. One of the guest instructors that was brought in had a slideshow where he was showing, at the time it was slides.
Oh, slides. Yeah.
So and I don't even know what the subject was, but you know, there goes the slideshow. And we're learning stuff. Well, I found out years later, I didn't know this, that this guest instructor had, in the slideshow, to keep the guys awake, he would slip in pictures of nude women. And suddenly there would be a nude woman on there. And before I went into the class, I was registered, and the guy that taught the class realized, he says, geez, I got a woman in my class. So he went to this guy with the nudies, and he says, I got a woman coming into this class. You cannot have nude pictures of women flashing up on the screen. And he said, well, what do you want me to do? And the guy said, and he goes, before I could even tell him to get rid of him, the guy says, should I put nude men in there too? Oh. But I didn't find this out till years later, and he goes, no, take the pictures out. He goes, okay, fine. So anyway, it turned out I had a really, really good time training, and then I thought, oh, everything's going to be easy. So when I came on, I was already of the mind that I can do this, and nobody ever gives me crap. And then when it started, I was just floored.
When the crap started?
When the crap started, I was just floored, because I had had months of training where I was treated as an equal. So anyway, people were nasty behind your back and stuff, but it wasn't really too bad until 2 years into it, it was time to put in a full-time firefighter. Somebody had retired, and now it was time to hire. So yeah, I could do this. Here, too dumb to know. So I applied. I went and started taking the tests, and it was, the test was, there was no written or anything. It was a physical agility test and an interview. So man, I trained. I was ripped. I'll back up and say I trained at minimum 4 days a week with the weights, and I did cardio, and I was just, I was a monster. I was really ripped. I was only 5'2", 5'3", but
you're forced to be reckoned with.
I didn't want anybody to say she can't do this. So I was one big knot of muscle. So when it came time for the physical agility test, I kicked butt. I did super. And when all was said and done, I came out number 2. And I was pretty damn proud of myself, because it was like, there was more than 2 applicants.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so there's, 14, 15, 16 of us, whatever it was, but I came out number 2. I felt pretty darn good. Then it came time for the interviews. And this is, panel, and it's all fire captains and fire guys and stuff, and they're asking questions. And then one guy, whose name will not be mentioned because everybody knows him, just looks at me and he says, so what are you trying to prove? Excuse me?
Did that blindside you, or were you kind of like preparing for some?
I was
so just completely out of the blue.
Yeah, what are you trying to prove? And I thought, I was like astounded. And I was used to telling the truth. I said, I got nothing to prove. I'm here to do a good job. I think I can really do this. Man, and the more I thought about it, the more mad I got that night when I went home. It's like, what do you mean prove? And years later, I'll tell you this, years later I was doing something, and I think I was a state fire marshal at the time, I don't even remember. And I was nervous. And this guy says, what are you nervous about? What are you nervous about? I says, I just, I want to make sure I do a good job. And he says, DeMars, Jesus, he says, you got nothing to prove. What are you worried about? You have nothing to prove. Look what you've done. Yeah. But that question that question was probably typical, because that was a time in, that was the 78, 79, 1980, where women didn't do that. Women weren't police officers. There was damn few of them. They definitely weren't firefighters. If you got pregnant, you probably got fired, or you didn't get rehired. And God forbid your husband bring the baby to work so you can nurse the baby on your lunch hour. Absolutely not done. And it was like, this is a huge deal. So women in the fire service was like, oh God, you're a women's libber. You're gonna want to put us in the newspaper, and you're gonna want to sue us for what. It's like, They were all afraid, and all I wanted to do was like fight fires.
Just wanted to do what they were doing.
Oh, exactly.
Why not? Yeah.
It was really, as you know, it's really cool.
It's fun.
It's
the best job.
Super fun job. It's just awesome. Anyway, so I did all that, and so to shorten this really long story, the number one guy declined the job.
Okay.
So I got very fortunate. I was asked if I wanted the job, said yes, and got hired. Now, the nice part about that, I'll give you the nice stuff.
Okay.
So I got put on with the shift. We were the A shift, and my captain, Don Aker, he's the one that had to have the first female firefighter. Oh, by the way, first female firefighter in the state full-time.
That's the nugget.
That's
the really sweet nugget that Denise has. So she's got that good title.
Sometimes I forget that. He had to work with me. So he came in, and it was like being back in, you know, in the college when I was taking those classes. Like, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. And he taught me everything, and it was just awesome. So a couple of things, like nuggets, things that were fun with Aker. I just loved him. Everybody called him Aker. It's time to, you know, drive the fire trucks. And he goes, come on, we're going to drive the fire truck. So it's like, and you get in your way up there, and holy cow, this is cool, you know, and here you go. And I'm learning to drive the fire truck and get into the alleys and back down alleys and stuff. And I said, shoot, he goes, okay, back her back into the station now. And this is the old station where the doors are about this much wider than the truck, you know. So I kind of lined it up, and he's just sitting in the truck, and I said, geez, Aker, this is really thin. I don't know if I can get it in there. And he goes, sure you can. You're sure? He goes, yep. If you get the back end in, the rest follows. That's good advice.
Very good advice. It's very practical.
It is. It's awesome. But anyway, so we're sitting there one night, and I just had to ask. You know, Don was married. He's married. He had kids. And I said, okay, I gotta ask you, how does your wife feel about this? Because, you know, as you can imagine, a lot of the other wives are like, oh my God, because you pull 24-hour shifts. You're there overnight. We are.
Yeah.
And I said, Aker, what does your wife think about all this? He says, oh, I asked her before they put you on shift with me. And she looked right at me and she says, honey, if she wants to make eyes at you, I feel sorry for her. I said, oh, that's the stamp of approval.
There you go.
Yeah, it was delightful. She was delightful. My partner was delightful. We had a great time. But then some of the happened. There was always the nasty talk behind your back. Like, she's just in it for the glory. She's just in it to prove a point. She's not very good. And that was a lie. I was really good. A volunteer came in to work a shift one night, and he disassembled my bed. Well, I was out doing something. Maybe I was inspecting somebody. I came back, my bed was gone. And I thought, what the hell is this? And it's in the chief's office. I said, what's my bed doing in the chief's office? He says, that's where you're going to sleep. He says, I will not sleep in the same area with a woman. So, and the chief's office was all the way across the bay. There was, 3 trucks in between. It was a totally different area of the fire department. And I said, no, you ain't. You bring my bed back. I don't care where you sleep. I'm sleeping in my bed. But he disassembled the whole damn thing because his wife didn't want him sleeping overnight at the station with a woman. Seriously. And he got mad. He goes, well, I have to live with my wife. I said, well, that's too damn bad.
You'll have to find the balance there, my friend.
Exactly, find the balance. So then another volunteer came in, another one he's still with us. I was commanding the shift because my partner had called in sick or something. So then we had to bring in some volunteers. So I'm full-time at the time, and I had to bring in some volunteers to fill it out. And he walked in, he says, where's your partner? I says, he's sick. Nope. I says, what's the matter with you? He goes, I ain't working. I will not take orders from a woman. And he walked out.
Well, he knew where he could go then with his opinion, right out the door. So that story of your first day on shift, how did that go then?
That went smoothly, But because I already knew what I was doing. All right, I'd been 2 years as a paid on call or a volunteer, we called them at the time, and I knew what I was doing. I could come right in, I could start working a shift. It was not like I had to be trained in. But so I'm working and I'm doing my thing, and my partner Don comes in after it's like almost noon, and he says, "Hey, have you noticed all the people walking by the door?" You know, and I said, "No." You know, you could come into the fire station, you walk by the doors to the offices and stuff, and you know, people were coming and going all the time. And I said, "No, I haven't really noticed." And he says, "Watch." He said, "Every single person who works in City Hall has managed to walk by that door today and look in." So I, looking out of the corner of my eye, and here you go, people come trooping by, and they'd walk, and they'd try to look in, but not break stride and keep walking. And I says, what's going on, Acre? He says, "They all want to see the woman firefighter."
Ooh.
And I said, "Oh, well, okay." And he said, "Here's what's funnier, Denise." He says, "I walked upstairs to the City Hall to kind of see what they were talking about." He said, "This one lady comes running in and she goes, 'I saw her, I saw her.'" And they go, "You did? What does she look like?" And she says, "It's really weird because she's not 8 foot tall. She doesn't look like a gorilla.
Oh.
She just looks normal."
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
a normal looking woman fire. Okay.
yeah. So apparently we are real people. But that was fun. I thought that was really funny. And and I'm proud of myself that I was able to, especially take the physical agility test. Now here's what's cool. I wanted to step up. No offense to my Columbia Heights people, but Coon Rapids was having a test for full timers as well. So I went and I took their test and really did a great job. You know, blew through the physical agility and I felt really good. But then Veterans Preference came in and it knocked me out of the top 6. So lucky for Columbia Heights, but not me. But so then I went and tested for Richfield Fire about in that same era. And when you get to these tests, the physical agility parts, you know, it's how many pull-ups, how fast can you run, how much weight can you lift, whatever they had doing. And when you went there, you always knew what's a pass-fail. Is 7 pull-ups a pass and is 6 a fail or whatever. And so when I would get to each station, I'd say, okay, what's my pass-fail? Because like if it's running, I want to be able to pace myself or whatever. And the guy says, "We don't know." I mean, what do you mean you don't know? He says, "The chief says we don't know." He says, "Just have everybody go through the test and we'll decide what's pass-fail after." Ooh, what does that tell you, Emily? So I had an in at the station. One of the lieutenants was a friend of mine, and he's the one that told me to take the test. So he called later. He says, "You're not going to believe this." Goes, "We got all the results. It's in a sheet." He says, "All the names, all the results from all the physical agility tests are there. The sit-ups, the pull-ups, the whatevers." And he said, "We handed it to the chief and says, 'Okay, chief, where's the cutoff? Who passed? Who failed?'" And he says the chief looked at it. And he runs his finger down and he goes, "Right there."
No.
And it gets better. He puts this red line right above one of the candidates whose name was Kim something or other. Denise was farther down. Kim was a man, but Kim got to be below the cutoff line because the chief thought Kim was a woman, and he said that's exactly why he made that line there. He goes, "I'm sorry, Denise, I don't know what we can do about it." But all the women were eliminated, starting with Kim, who was really a male. And I thought, wow. So Minneapolis Fire didn't have any females on, and that was a big deal. You know, Columbia Heights had them, they didn't. And they decided, you know, they wanted to start hiring women because it's a good deal. You know, untapped source.
Ooh.
So I got a phone call a couple years into my career with Columbia Heights from the Minneapolis Fire Chiefs guys. He said, "We're having a physical agility test. It's a beta test. You know," he says, we got a physical agility test. We want to run it. We want to see if you can pass it. If you can pass it, it's a good test."
Oh, well, thank you.
So, well, that's nice.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I did, and they did that a couple of times. They would have a physical agility test, and they ran the whole thing, and they had male candidates and female candidates, and we all went together, and you know, and we all ran through the test. And I always passed them, and man, it was hard. I think I busted a gut muscle, but I passed it. Because otherwise, why should you don't deserve the job if you can't do the work, right?
Yeah, if you can't perform the duties that are expected of you by the citizens or the job,
Oh, yeah.
you shouldn't be doing the job, no matter what other little details are listed.
Yes, if you don't have the right plumbing, but you can still pull somebody out of a building,
Get them out.
there you go.
Yeah, that shouldn't matter.
Anyway, so that was pretty cool. I felt good about that, and my mother was she worked at one of the nice restaurants downtown, and the Minneapolis fire chiefs and their guys would come in, and she said they'd frequently come in and they would have lunch at our fancy restaurant. She said, I walked by one time, and all of a sudden, she says, it caught my ear, and she said, I heard your name mentioned. Ooh. And I thought, what'd they say, Mom? And she says, I'm walking by, and they were talking about you, Denise, and one of them said, she's really good. Do you know the men follow her into the fire? And I thought, oh yeah. So
That's a little. Get your feathers up there a little bit.
Yeah, I felt kind of fluffy, but there was times when I got crap, but there was a lot. I did the job and did it well, and the news spread, and I think that made it easier for other women too, because they go, oh, well, all women aren't failures. We got one here that's doing just fine. So it was great. Now. So here I am. We'll go back to like the first few months I was on. So I was on a couple of months, and the fire chief at the time says, "Come on," he says, "there's a fire chiefs conference. It's right here in town. I want to take you and show you off."
Oh.
So I said, "Okay." So I, combed my hair and cleaned up. He takes me to this. It was the fire chiefs conference. It was, I don't know where it was, Bloomington, and walks me into this big hall, and there's all these people, and blah blah blah. And he walks me up to this group of men. 5 or 6 men, all in a circle. I'm assuming they're fire chiefs, because they're all old, and they're all, old white men. And he elbows his way in, and he says, "Hey, fellas, I want to introduce you to my latest full-time firefighter. This is Denise. She's I'm going to have to put a word in quotes here, Emily. I won't say a bad word, but you'll know what the word is, okay?" He says, "This is Denise. She's the first female combat firefighter in the state of Minnesota." And this old guy looks down at me, and he looks up at me, and he says, "Well, we got a N-word." It's like, whoa.
I'm assuming everyone at the table was a little shocked. Hopefully, no. So this was just common.
Only Denise was shocked. Everybody else goes, "Oh, well, yeah, you got one of those." And it's like, wow. So my ears were just pounding. I don't know what went on after that. I don't know if any of this. It's like, I gotta go, and I just left.
So there's got to be. I know you have tons of stories. What has got to be a story you can think of off the top of your head that really made you proud, and proved to yourself and maybe others looking around that you're a force to reckon with, and that you can do this job just as well as, say, a guy?
Yeah, oh man, one pops out right away. And we were on the training ground with a regular Monday night drill, and we were putting up the big ladders, which was a big deal in itself. And there was a fire officer there. He was one of the full-time officers that had told me, with finger in my face in front of people, "You don't belong here." Why? You're a woman. Do I do a bad job? No. You don't belong here. Why? Because you're a woman. Women don't belong here. Well, this officer was a very heavy person. If he was an ounce, he was 3 1/4. He is big, fat person. And so we're on the fire ground drilling, and he goes all the way up to the top of this 24, 26-foot ladder, turns around and says, "Hey, Denise, come up here and rescue me." Okay. I'm in. So I climbed up the ladder, and I got him on top of me, and he let go, and I carried that big person all the way down the ladder, didn't drop him, didn't break anything, didn't hurt myself, set him on the ground, and I said, "There you go." And never got any crap from any of the guys again, because I was about 131 pounds at the time, so I was carrying double to triple my weight. And that shut a lot of people up. They finally had to just shut their mouths and say, I guess she can do the job.
Well, it's always nice that a guess would be from bringing a very large individual down a ladder.
Yeah,
little old you, okay.
Yeah, see, most in the when we were out like fighting a fire in the public, I don't think most people knew it was a woman underneath all the gear. They just thought it was a really little person, which is fine. But I do remember, like, sometimes you'd take off I remember taking off the gear and taking off the mask because it was really hot, and I just got out of a firehouse or something. And you can, especially little kids, Mom, she's a girl.
Yep.
And it was always very positive, very positive. And you'd think the older generation would be the ones that were the sour balls, but in truth, most of the older generation people were just the best. In terms of the public, the general public. Like, I would have senior citizen women just, they want to like touch the hem of my coat, and their husbands would say, wow, good for you.
Awesome.
This is wonderful.
So you got a good warm response from pretty much just the general public whenever you were out.
Columbia Heights people, yes, everybody was like, look, Mom, there's a fire lassie. The old ladies would call me that. But I mean, it was awesome, and it was one of the funnest parts of the job, was being out in public and being able to, do some good. And then, both in this job and in my job, well, actually, I was a Hennepin County Deputy Sheriff for a couple years before I got the Heights job. And being a female as a Deputy Sheriff and as a firefighter, and then further on when I became a Deputy State Fire Marshal Investigator, really helped. Because I think women have more of an inborn sense of being able to read the room, and we know what people need, and we aren't all just do it my way. We're much more able to, you can call it manipulate people, but I think it's more like reading the room and knowing what works best in the moment right now. And a lot of men don't have that. Maybe they're not born with it, but it helped me a lot be not scary and be approachable. And people didn't mind having me help them because I was little and not scary, and I like people anyway. I think they can tell.
That kind of helps. So when you were here for 8 years with Columbia Heights with the fire department, and then you transitioned to the state fire marshal's office. What kind of led you to go to the state fire marshal? What made you evolve even further with, definitely even a male-dominated field, even at the state fire marshal's division? How was the reception there? I mean, and how did you, utilize what you learned here, get you to the fire marshal's division?
Oh, great question. While I was working in Heights, and I give this credit to Donald Aker, my first captain. He got me interested in investigating. So he would find me books, and he would give me, programs and send me to schools where I learned how to be a fire investigator, and I got a lot of practice doing it here at Heights. And about the time I got really good at it was also about the time that, remember the guy that disassembled my bed?
Oh, yes.
And the guy that made me carry him down the fire ladder, that's two different guys. Both of them ended up being chief and assistant chief. Oh. And they, in spite of the fact that I was now 8 years into doing this job and had always done, in my opinion, a really excellent job, the crap still kept coming. You don't belong here, you're a woman, blah, blah, blah. So about that time, the state fire marshal's office noticed me because they would come into Columbia Heights and they would do the big fires and I would help. So they approached me one day. I got a visit from a state fire marshal who said, would you come and work for us? And I thought, wow, all the crap I'm putting up with here and it's only going to get worse. Yeah, here we go. So I was recruited. I went over there and it was a great move because when you're I was an investigator. So it's like a CSI type person, and every day is something different. If you like puzzles, that's the job to get.
Fun.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay at the state fire marshal's office?
I stayed with them 24 years.
24 years.
Yeah.
Best thing you ever did, probably.
Probably. Firefighting is probably the best job I ever had. But it's a young person's job. Like I can't step in now and do what you do, Emily. It's you got to be young and strong. So I think it was a good move that I could keep my career and extend it and not, kill myself trying to fight fires.
Well, good. Now you're retired and you're living okay, I would say, right?
Living the dream.
Living the dream. Well, you got to write a book now with all these stories and all the things and all the fun activities that have transpired with the town and how it's grown and things that have changed and events that you've been a pivotal part of. You were the first female that opened the door, broke the ceiling. Take it as you will, but you definitely broke the ceiling to say to the younger generations of females, saying, there's a female that's already done it. She did it expertly because she made it to the State Fire Marshal Division. So you taking the role and just being stubborn or just keeping on the grind, doing what you do, has led you to trailblaze this path. And I'm on the full-time division here at the department. We have a good group of female firefighters in the paid-on-call division, and you're seeing females rise in the fire service. We're coming. We got some work to do, but we're coming.
Oh, you know what? I don't think there is work to do. I really don't. Females, it doesn't matter what your plumbing is.
Yeah.
Women do an excellent job, period.
Yes.
And a story that I've told other people before and I'll mention his name, I think he's gone. Bob Davidson was a volunteer fire captain here. And my captain, Aker, had called in sick. So there I am all alone. It's time to work a shift, so we got to call in people. So Bob Davidson says, I'll come in. Great. So then we needed 2 more people. So 2 more women came in, both volunteers. So now we got 3 women, me and 2 other volunteers, and we got Captain Bob. And Bob is sitting there, and people who know him will be able to do this in his voice, but he says, I hope we get a fire tonight.
Oh, those are dangerous words to say.
Jinx, yeah. I says, Bob, why do you want to have a fire? He says, I want to pull up to that fire scene with a complete crew of females and have everybody watch you guys kick. Oh. And I thought, that's so nice.
That's so nice, and then you almost are craving, well, let's have a fire and let's go out and kick some.
Yeah, he was so proud that he had a full woman crew, and he knew that this full woman crew could just do it. And I was so happy. Yeah, that was. People who know Bob will go, yeah, that was him. But and a lot of good times. Good times with the State Fire Marshal's Office too. I mainly I wasn't usually called to investigate a fire unless it was for sure arson, or if it was a really big loss, and most importantly, there was a fatality involved. So I went to a lot of those, and what I did is, take charge of the scene and work it, and you have to dig it out. You have to find out where the fire started, why it started, and if there's a fatality, you end up excavating the body too, which is tough. It's a real tough job, but you get through it because who else will do it? Somebody needs to do this for these people. And you were talking about, women. We were talking about how women you can read the room. And I can remember several times, and that you deal with the family. Okay, we know your uncle or your dad or your kid died in a fire, and you've got to interview these people, and you've got to deal with them and get them through it somehow. And I can remember this story I never forget. I forget a lot of stuff, but not this one. And it's we had 3 children die in a car fire. The car lit on fire while it was rolling. Couldn't get them out. It was horrible. And I had to be in charge of that scene. And what was important to me was when we had to take apart the vehicle and get in and get these tiny little children out. And we made sure that we did it slowly, we did it respectfully, and we went and got white sheets and white cloths, and we wrapped them like they were sleeping babies, and we carried them like they were babies that had fallen asleep in the car, and we put them into where we could get them, to go back to Mercy Hospital so the coroners could do the thing. And it was almost a right, and that's what we did with all the people. We made sure we treated them as respectfully as we could, because that's what they deserve. Whether it was an old person or a young person or a bum, we always treated them, and I think a lot of people didn't see that, but that was really important to me and my colleagues that we do that. And then when we'd meet with I'm going to get back to these children because one of the children's, the father of one of the children was a firefighter, which is, I mean, how much more horrible can that be? That your child dies in a fire, you're not there to protect him or her. And he was absolutely positive. He had made up his mind that we went in, we took a shovel, we got the kid out, we threw the kid in the back of a pickup truck and drove, all the horrible things he's thinking about, this is my baby. And when he found out that no, absolutely the opposite, he met with us, or I should say his wife did. He couldn't bring himself to meet with us, but his wife met with us and she said, you have no idea how much that meant. I thought, oh, that's so nice because it's the people, it's the people. And a lot of times you're able to help them through it and cry with them. And they go, oh, I like Denise, she cried for me. Well, yeah, how can you not, or laugh with them or be joyful that everything was saved. Or when the guys saved their dogs or their cats. Oh, cats, I gotta tell you about this. We're fighting a fire here in Columbia Heights, and I went in, and it's really dark, and we're trying to fight the fire, and we're looking for it, we're crawling through, and all of a sudden, wow, this cat all over me. It's like, God. So I'm trying to, luckily I wasn't on the nozzle, and I got off the hose, and I got this cat's going, wah, 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 wah. So I like animals. I'm not going to just, abandon it. So I'm trying to hold it. Luckily, I got all my gear on, and I run it out. And I'm trying to think, what do I do with the cat? Well, I threw it in the chief's car.
Perfect.
I don't know whatever happened after that, but anyway, I digress. It's been a great life. And there you go.
Well, Denise, thank you. I'm so glad you could come on and stop by and sit down with me and talk with me. And, I look forward to always seeing and hearing your stories when we run into each other for, what other random heights brings us back together.
All right.
So
sounds good.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us and listening to us talk. And we'll hopefully see you again. This is Emily Kosman and Denise DeMars. We'll see you next time.